you for joining us. I'm Howard Ricklow and I head up the private jet team at Collyer Bristow. And I have with me today Karl Mills, who's the UK Sales Director for TAG Aviation. Hello, Karl. Very pleased you can join us. Tell us a bit about what TAG do.
Hi, Howard. It's a pleasure to join. Thank you for inviting us. In terms of TAG Aviation, for those who don't know, we are very discreet in everything that we do. TAG Aviation are certainly Europe's largest and oldest business jet operator. We have bases of operations headquartered in Switzerland. We're also here in the UK, in Farnborough, where I'm filming from today. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a better view of the planes. We also have a sales presence in Paris, in Bahrain, and we are also co-owned with our partners over in TAG Asia. So the shareholders of TAG Asia are also for TAG Europe as well. So in terms of size and scale, we have 2,000 employees globally. We manage, on behalf of direct clients and large corporations, 95 aircraft, 95 private aircraft. Majority of the fleet are heavy jets, and they are based all over the world, and 20 of those aircraft are available for charter. In terms of AOCs, we have an AOC here in the UK for the G-Reg, over in Malta for the 9H, and then in San Marino as well for the T7. So all bases are covered.
No, thanks for that. A lot of our people watching this video won't be familiar necessarily with the jargon. They probably may not have owned before, may have chartered. Can you just talk a bit about what an AOC is so they understand?
Sure. So an AOC is representative of an air operating certificate. So for any aircraft operator to manage an aircraft and operate safely, needs to have an AOC and a certain registration. So within the UK, we have an AOC that is regulated by the UK CAA. So they make sure that we're operating to the highest possible safety standards and make sure when passengers are on board TAG aircraft that we are operating to, for your interest, the same safety standards as a company like British Airways.
Great, well, thanks for that. So let's talk about onboarding. How long does it take? What's involved?
Good question. It completely depends on the aircraft, and it completely depends on the registration and operation. So everything we do here at TAG is completely bespoke because our clients are completely bespoke. The same as with yourselves at Collyer Bristow. So it depends on the aircraft, but to give an idea of timescales, if we already have an aircraft type on our aircraft operating certificate, for instance, in the UK, so if we already have the type, then it can be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. If it's a brand new type of aircraft to TAG Aviation and to the particular registration country that it's going to be registered within, it can be anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. So it can take some time. In terms of the process from TAG, as soon as an aircraft is purchased and an aircraft operator is chosen, and hopefully that operator will be TAG, first thing we'll do is organise a kick-off meeting internally, and that involves every single department within the company in multiple locations. It's not like the team here in the UK act independently of the other teams around the world. We don't. We work actively together and share information and share knowledge. And often, if a client is looking to onboard an aircraft quickly, then we will close all projects and specifically bring everyone in purely to work on that project at the time. In terms of onboarding, really, without going into too much detail, there are 8 stages of onboarding. As soon as the aircraft management agreement is signed and there is a commitment with TAG, there are then the stages of compliance, so making sure that we are in line with the regulators. Documentation and certificates are all correct for the aircraft. Crew recruiting and training, which will go into crew in slightly more detail in a sec. Review from the authorities that we're dealing with, so if it's a UK-based aircraft, the UK CAA will be involved in that. Finance, setting up the financial structure, both internally and externally with the owner. Aircraft acceptance and PPIs, which our friends over at Jetcraft always help with. and then the registration process, and then the first flight. So really those are the 8 stages of what it is that we do. To give an idea of workload for TAG to onboard an aircraft professionally, we have around just over 700 tasks that we have to perform to onboard an aircraft correctly, and that's why it can take some time.
So tell us a bit more about crewing.
So for us, certainly in private aviation, crewing is probably the most important part of an operation. It can quite literally make or break an operation, whether it's successful or not. And finding the right crew is so important, because certainly here at TAG, and certainly within business aviation, our crew are so much more than pilots. They are managers. They are managers of the client. They are managers of the trips. They oversee a huge amount. So not only are we looking at their flight skills, but we're looking at their abilities as a manager. People often ask us, do people come straight from the large commercial airlines? And sometimes they do. But because business aviation is so bespoke in its operations, someone who has 10,000 hours on a commercial aircraft, who's doing the same route 6 or 7 times a week, whilst very impressive, that's not how our world works. Our world is far more bespoke. You may go to one airport that you've never been to, and that requires a different kind of mentality, and certainly a managerial flair. In terms of how we find the right people within TAG, there are 4 stages to the recruitment. So first, we'll look at, we do keep an active talent pool within TAG. We know a lot of the pilots in our industry, so we stay in touch with them. 9 times out of 10, the pilots are ex-military. They tend to be fantastic pilots and fantastic managers. So we will advertise first internally within that pool, and then externally to the marketplace. Next, we will do an initial assessment, which will involve a TAG interview either here at Farnborough or Hong Kong, or one of our bases, where we will test their IQs, their PQ psychometric testing, flight experience review and technical assessments, all here in-house within TAG. So that's the first stage, to almost pass the first hurdle within TAG, to make sure they meet our requirements. The next stage is we will bring them to the client, and it is a case of the client, the end user, then interviewing that crew member. So not only can they be able to fly the plane, they must be able to be a manager as well, but they must also fit the client. There has to be that personality. It has to work correctly in terms of the client as well. So that's an important part of the process, and we ultimately let the client decide. If the client is happy with the person that we've presented, the final assessment is, as you can imagine, full simulator tests. We do personality tests as well, medical tests and background assessments, before we then offer a contract to join the company. Kind of going back to the onboarding question, that is why finding crew can often take longer than it takes to onboard the aircraft. To find the right crew can be anywhere between 3 to 6 months. But if we take our time and we find the right crew for the job, it saves all the headaches later on down the line. So we like to take our time on that.
Yeah, that's understandable. In terms of number of crew, I guess it depends on the type of aircraft. Are there variables? Does the client typically say, how many do I need?
Yes.
Or is that they do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the operation. So if it's a private operation where the owner is expecting to fly his aircraft maybe 100 hours per year, then you're probably fine with 2 crew, maybe a freelancer in the background if needed, if anyone is ever sick, and a flight attendant, depending on the size of the aircraft. If you're talking about more of a commercial operation where the owner is using it, but it's also being sold for charter as well, then you could be looking at upwards of 500 hours of usage per year, and therefore you need additional crew members. And in terms of how bespoke choosing the crew members it needs to be, we have some corporate clients who want crew members or flight attendants, for example, who do not speak their native language, because they're going to be having business meetings on board the aircraft, and they don't want a corporate issue there, because the flight attendant can understand what they're saying. So all of these factors go into finding the right crew, and it can take time.
Right, thanks for that, Carl. So when ready to fly, what happens next?
Good question. Within TAG, our customer service setup is slightly different to others within the industry. So We're very aware that TAG are a large company, and as a large company, that comes with obvious advantages. You know, economies of scale mean that our cost control department reduce things like fuel costs for our owners, or insurance premiums, or crew training costs. You know, with an operator of our size operating 95 aircraft, you know, the financial benefits to the owners are tangible, and they're passed on to the owners at cost, of course. However, from a customer service point of view, we still want to, from shareholder level down, we still want to maintain that family feel, that small customer service feel, that bespoke feel in everything that we do. So what we've done is all of our aircraft owners have 4 points of contact. Number one is called a CSR, so a client service rep. And what your client service rep does is manage the day-to-day. So your client service rep will come to your offices, they will meet your PAs, and they will schedule your trips on a day-to-day. So if you want to go from Farnborough to Paris, you call your client service rep, and they will do the rest for you, and they will, you know, pull the strings and organize all of the trip for you internally here at TAG. So they are the day-to-day. Your next step up from there is your CRM, who is the client relationship manager. The client relationship manager is there to deal with the bigger picture. So things like you're negotiating your hangar contract, negotiating your maintenance programs, negotiating on salaries for your crew. They were looking at the bigger aspects of the operation, not really the day-to-day. So they will help with that side to ensure that your operation is running smoothly and it's really cost efficient. So that's their job, is to look at the bigger picture. Next, you have your lead pilot. So we call them the CAM here at TAG, so your client aviation manager. And they are obviously your front-facing manager. So they will manage the crew on your behalf. They will manage the rostering of the crew to make sure your aircraft is available. But they will obviously be on the ground with the aircraft. So they're going to be the ones who are seeing the client on a day-to-day, and they are normally the point of contact. If there are ever any issues or changes that are needed, it's normally mentioned to the pilots when the client arrives. And then the last point of contact, so point number 4, is a senior member of the team. So it's normally the mobile phone number of our CEO or our general manager here at TAG. And the reason why we do that is sometimes issues can happen, of course, it's aviation, sometimes things go wrong. It's all about how we solve those issues. And if our clients have the phone number of a genuine decision maker, it can normally solve problems very, very quickly. So we like to give our clients that peace of mind. So really, our clients, although they're dealing with a huge corporate company like TAG, they're only really speaking to 4 people.
I know that there are maintenance programs. There are various ways of maintaining an aircraft. So if you could explain a bit about how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think people often misunderstand maintenance. They often think that a maintenance team step in when something goes wrong with an aircraft, and of course that does happen, but there's so much more to it. So within TAG, we have, for instance, in the UK, here in Farnborough, we have a team of 15 guys, a mix of fleet managers and airworthiness managers and technical managers here. And the job of CAMO, the abbreviation means Continued Airworthiness and Maintenance Operations, it means that we're planning ahead. So here within TAG, we have an in-house CAMO team, and their job is to provide 4 things. Number 1 is airworthiness. So we have to constantly be in compliance with the regulations to the highest possible level. So within the team, an aircraft will be allocated a fleet manager, and the fleet manager will be watching everything to do with that aircraft and keeping an eye on the compliance of the aircraft to make sure that it is legal to fly and it's held to the highest possible safety standards. Number 2 is availability. It sounds silly, but these aircraft need to be maintained at certain points in the year, and scheduling that and forward thinking and planning for that is quite a skill. So our fleet managers are not only there to react to when there are problems, it's to pre-plan and look for opportunities where light maintenance can be done without the owner pre-planning for that time and without restricting the owners in any way. If an aircraft is heading over to Paris and it's going to be overnighting in Paris, and we can do some light maintenance whilst it's there, then the fleet manager can offer that potential solution, and ultimately it's the owner's decision. But really that gives us more availability per year, which is obviously really important, especially if it's a commercial charter aircraft. The third thing is special projects. So if there's things like interior refurbs, if there are modifications on the flight deck, you know, the initial PPI we can help support if we want, but that's normally managed by your sales broker. These special projects, whether TAG are physically doing the work or not, they will project manage those projects for you and oversee and make sure that it's you know, legal. And then the last one is analysis, which is a really important one. Quarterly, we like our fleet managers to analyze the aircraft and analyze the aircraft operation to see if we can spot any potential risks, or more importantly, probably for our owners, to see if we can spot any cost-saving opportunities. So having an overview from a maintenance side is incredibly important because it makes the aircraft available, but it also makes it more efficient.
You also touched upon charter, so if you can tell us a little bit how that works from an owner's perspective.
Absolutely. So here in TAG, charter is a big part of our business. Really, our two pillars of our business are aircraft management and charter services. So in terms of our team here in Europe, certainly we've got the biggest sales team in Europe for chartering an aircraft. But I guess from an owner's point of view, if they're looking for additional return, how does that work? So initially, TAG will offer the aircraft to the market. They will advertise by various means, you know, whether it's through industry advertising. But TAG are slightly different to the rest of the marketplace, where we advertise our aircraft to the direct clients. So probably if we look at last year and the year before, around 90% of our charter business here at TAG is with the end decision maker, is with the direct client. You know, that has almost happened naturally because you know, because of our brand and because of our safety standards. But we prefer to work with the end client because we find that service delivery is much easier. It's much smoother. We can control the relationship much more and set expectations and make sure that we deliver on those expectations. So when an aircraft owner comes to us and looks to bring in additional revenue, we know their schedule, obviously, so we have our internal systems that show what the aircraft owner is looking to do, and on their go-ahead, we will then advertise their aircraft in the time frame that they've given us. Once a client is looking to potentially book a charter trip with TAG, we will send over quotations of what the general price will be for the aircraft, but we cannot go ahead until we ask permission from the owner. So that's called owner's release. So if a charter client, you know, a large corporate wants to go ahead with a charter trip and book one of our aircraft, they will come to TAG and they will say, I'd like to go ahead. We will present the financial data to the aircraft owner. We will tell them who the passengers are going to be, where they're going, you know, if there's any reasons for the trip, a full breakdown of the costs in terms of, you know, what this is going to cost to operate and what this is going to give in returns of profit for the owner. If the owner agrees, then we go ahead and we sign the contract with our charter client, and the aircraft owner, you know, will lose the use of his aircraft for that period, but it's their decision. And it can generate really good returns for the aircraft owner, but it also depends on how available the aircraft is and how often it's going to be used. Really, the sweet spot for kind of maximum utilization of an aircraft is around the 600 to 700 hours per year. So if an aircraft owner is going to be using his aircraft 400, 500 hours a year himself, you can probably work out that there isn't much leeway for additional charter return. So every situation is completely different, but it depends on how available the aircraft is to us and if we have the crew ready. But in terms of return, it can create fantastic returns. It's worth being honest and saying, I don't think aircraft can be chartered to make a huge profit. We're often asked that, but it can certainly cover your costs. It can certainly cover maintenance costs and some of your fixed costs as well. So it's a huge contribution to our aircraft owners, and it's often valued.
So that's a very helpful thing to know. Of course, the other way around, I suppose, looking at chartering is that first-time owners may themselves have been chartering, and that may be their first experience, so that they've learned a bit doing that. Yeah, one I think final point on that is, are charter clients locked in from a contractual point of view?
It's a good question. We know a lot of our competitors do, and the honest answer is it depends on the setup here with TAG. We certainly don't. I know there are kind of block hour agreements with some of our competitors, and they offer their advantages. But normally you will then be locked into a 3 or 5 year contract with a provider of something like that, which we don't really agree with. We think that this product should be weighted in favour of the client, not in favour of the operator. Certainly considering what's been going on in the world. COVID restrictions and Brexit, it's obviously affected what operators can do. So we don't really think that that is correct. But here at TAG, we can charter in 3 ways. So we can work on an ad hoc basis where you say, I would like to go from Farnborough to Paris. We send you a contract simply for that trip and you sign and you pay for that trip, and that's it. You're not held into anything more than that. Probably for us, about 80% of our business is on an ad hoc basis. So that's normally how we like to work. The next stage up from that, we do have a product that is a bit more of an account. So it's called the TAG One account. And that tends to be really popular with corporate clients. So corporate clients at the start of the year, they would like to allocate a certain budget to their private travel per year. And they come to us and they will deposit a certain amount of money per year. They're not locked into anything. They can have everything back in 3 days if they're not happy. And whatever the deposit size is completely up to them. The point of the deposit is simply to action trips quickly. So we work with a lot of corporate clients who need to go from A to B and they need it to happen within 4 or 5 hours. And therefore, if that happens on a Saturday or a Sunday, waiting for payment is a problem. It's a genuine problem for some of these corporate clients. And therefore, we keep funds on account and that we simply just work on an ad hoc basis, but we deposit funds from the funds that they've kept with us. So that's the second tier, if you like. The third tier above that is then leasing an aircraft. We can certainly organise leasing. It doesn't happen that often, being honest. It normally will come around when an aircraft owner has an aircraft that is going into a long maintenance period, so a long check, a C check for 3 months. And if he's going to be losing his aircraft, he will come to TAG and we will come up with a lease or a charter solution purely just for that 3-month block. That tends to be really popular with aircraft owners. So we can do that as well. And obviously they're contractually obliged to that 3-month period only. But we don't offer fractional ownership or block hour agreements because we don't like tying clients in. If they're happy with our service, they will always come back.
Right, well, thanks very much for that, Karl. All of that's been great, very informative. I've learned a lot, and hope everyone viewing the video will as well. And perhaps we'll do a follow-up when we've had some Q&As in. And thanks so much for joining us. And I hope we can again.
Yeah, be nice. Thank you.